Hello friends, today's movie is the highest-rated Hollywood movie of all time. It has an IMDB rating of 9.3. This is the story of Andy Dufresne, a prominent banker. He is sentenced to life imprisonment by the judge for the murder of his wife and her lover. After the sentencing, he is sent to a prison from which no inmate has ever escaped. This prison is called Shawshank. Many prisoners have spent their entire lives in this prison. When Andy arrives at the prison, the world outside was different, and now his world has completely changed. The rules and laws of this prison are also very strict. If anyone makes a mistake or tries to escape, they are beaten severely. First, Andy doesn't talk to anyone. Then one day, he meets an inmate named Red. Red can get anything from outside the prison. He has been in this prison for 20 years. Andy asks Red for a rock hammer and a large poster of an actress. Red asks, "Do you want to dig a tunnel in the prison with that hammer?" Andy replies, "When you see the hammer, you will understand." Red warns Andy about 3 inmates who have their eyes on him. Andy says, "What if I tell them I'm not gay?" Red responds, "It won't matter to them." As requested by Andy, Red orders the rock hammer. When Red sees the hammer, he thinks it would take 600 years to dig a tunnel with it. Actually, Andy has a hobby of carving stones, which is why he wanted the hammer. The hammer is delivered to Andy. A few days later, the same 3 men who had bad intentions towards Andy catch him at an opportune moment and assault him. This goes on for the next 2 years. Andy never complains. His body always has bruises, and a strange silence looms over his face. One day, some inmates are chosen to repair the roof, including Red and Andy. The supervisor, Hadley, seems troubled and mentions to his colleagues that his brother made $30,000 in his name, but it's pointless because the government will take it all in taxes. Andy and his friends overhear this conversation. Andy approaches Hadley and asks, "Do you trust your wife?" This infuriates Hadley, and he grabs Andy, taking him to the edge of the roof. But before Hadley throws him off, Andy says, "There is a government rule that allows a person to gift up to $60,000 to their spouse tax-free in their lifetime." Andy offers to help him with this for free in exchange for some beers for his friends. The next day, Andy's friends enjoy beer on the roof, showing that Andy successfully helped Hadley. A few days later, a movie is shown to all the prisoners. Andy leaves the room during the screening. However, as he steps out, the same 3 men catch him again, intending to assault him. Andy strikes them on the head, but they retaliate by beating him severely. Andy is so badly beaten that he is hospitalized for a month. The man who beat Andy is placed in solitary confinement for a week. When he returns to his cell, he encounters the officer whose $30,000 tax Andy had saved. The officer beats him so brutally that he becomes permanently disabled. A few days later, the prison warden comes to Andy's cell to conduct a search. However, the search is just an excuse. The warden had been informed by his officer that Andy had saved him $30,000 in taxes. That's why the warden wanted to meet Andy. Andy is holding a Bible, which the warden takes from him. The warden has great faith in the Bible. Andy's cell is adorned with pictures of several actors, and there's also a large poster of a famous actor. The warden remarks, "Though I don't usually allow this, sometimes certain things can be overlooked." The most surprising thing is that the warden doesn't find the hammer Andy ordered from Red. The warden leaves but returns shortly after, holding Andy's Bible. He hands the Bible back to Andy and says, "Salvation lies within." Impressed by Andy, the warden invites him to his office and makes him an assistant librarian. In the library, there's an old man who has been managing it for years, and Andy begins working under him. Additionally, Andy starts handling the office's tax returns. Years pass, and Andy's workload increases. He needs an assistant and appoints his best friend, Red, for the role. Time gradually passes, and one day, the librarian, under whom Andy works, holds a knife to another man's throat. The government has pardoned the librarian's sentence, but he doesn't want to leave the prison. He has completed 50 years in this prison, and this is his real world. He believes that if he kills someone, his sentence will be extended, allowing him to stay in the prison. However, after being persuaded by Andy and Red, the old librarian, Brooks, lets the man go. After leaving prison, Brooks feels out of place. The outside world has become much faster in the past 50 years. Where there used to be 1 or 2 cars on the road, now there is traffic everywhere. Brooks cannot adjust to this fast-paced life and ends up taking his own life. Inside the prison, it is shown that the warden starts a new program called In-Out. Under this program, prisoners are taken outside to work so they can learn how to earn money through hard work. However, through this program, the warden secures many contracts because prison labor is cheap. The warden makes a lot of money from this program, but all the money is black. Andy helps him by creating a fictional identity named Randall Stevens. Using fake documents, all the money is transferred into Randall Stevens' account, so if the police investigate, they would be searching for a man who never existed. A new prisoner named Tommy arrives at the prison. He is very young and has been to several prisons. When he learns about Andy's history of helping people, he approaches Andy and tells him he wants to finish high school so that after leaving prison, he can live a good life with his wife and child. Andy helps him. One day, Tommy goes to Red and asks, if Andy is so intelligent, what is he doing in this prison? Red explains that Andy was convicted of murdering his wife and her lover. He was a prominent banker. Hearing this, Tommy becomes completely silent. The next moment, Tommy is standing in front of Andy and Red. Tommy tells both of them that once he was in a prison where he met another prisoner. That prisoner told him about a night when he broke into a house. The homeowner woke up, and the intruder shot both the homeowner and his wife. Later, it was revealed that they weren't husband and wife but lovers. The woman was the wife of a prominent banker, and the banker was arrested for the murder of his wife and her lover. Hearing this, it becomes clear that Andy was innocent. After learning all this, Andy approaches the warden, but the warden deliberately ignores him. The warden knows Andy is the one who launders his black money. Andy knows all his secrets, indirectly threatening the warden. Andy assures him he won't reveal anything about the black money. This angers the warden, and he throws Andy into solitary confinement for a month. The warden also kills Tommy, who could have testified in Andy's favor and helped free him. Later, the warden visits Andy and lies, saying, Tommy was shot while trying to escape. Andy understands that the warden is lying. He tells the warden, I won't do any more work for you. The warden responds, keep him in solitary for another month. No one had ever been kept in solitary confinement for so long before. After spending 2 months in solitary, Andy is finally released. Red approaches him, and Andy asks, do you think you'll ever get out of here? Red replies, maybe when I'm old and my mind stops working. Andy says, I'm going to leave this place and head to Zihuatanejo. It's a beautiful place by the sea in Mexico. They say it's a place where a man can forget his past. I'll open a small restaurant there, repair boats by the beach, and go deep-sea fishing with my friends. Hearing this, Red becomes anxious and says, hope is a dangerous thing. Can drive a man insane. You need to come back to reality. Mexico is far from here. Andy replies, you're right. I have only 2 choices now. Get busy living or get busy dying. Before leaving, Andy asks Red for a promise. Red agrees, and Andy says, in Buxton, there's a large field with a big tree. Near that tree, there's a stone wall with a black stone on it. Under that stone, something is buried. Promise me that when you get out of here, you'll go to that tree. Red asks, what's under the stone? Andy replies, you'll have to go there to find out. Saying this, Andy goes back to doing the warden's work. After finishing, Andy puts all the warden's documents in a special safe. The warden hands over his clothes to Andy and instructs, my clothes should be ironed, and my shoes should shine like glass. That night, Andy returns to his cell, and Red remains anxious, fearing Andy might harm himself. The next morning, when all the cell doors open, Andy doesn't come out. When a guard approaches his cell, he is shocked. Meanwhile, the warden finds Andy's shoes in his own box instead of his own. Just then, an alarm sounds, signaling a prisoner escape. The warden rushes to Andy's cell and calls for Red. The warden asks Red, where is Andy? Red responds, how would I know? This enrages the warden, who exclaims, "What is this? A ghost that vanished overnight, leaving behind only this stone and this poster." The warden exclaims, throwing the stones in his hand toward the wall. One stone hits the poster, but instead of falling, it passes through it. When the warden reaches behind the poster, he discovers a large tunnel Andy had dug. Everyone is shocked because the wall was so strong that digging a tunnel without any machinery seemed almost impossible. Yet, Andy had made the impossible possible by escaping through it. The guards rushed to the spot from where Andy escaped. It all began with Andy's old clothes, soap, a comb, and the small rock hammer Red had given him 20 years ago. That very hammer had helped Andy dig the tunnel in his cell wall over the years. The debris from the wall was cleverly disposed of by Andy, who would carry it out in his pockets and scatter it around the prison yard. While working for the warden, Andy had kept all the documents related to the warden's black money. He stored these documents in the warden's vault without his knowledge. Wearing the clothes the warden gave him for ironing and the polished shoes, Andy walked out of the prison unnoticed. During the night, with all the lights off, Andy crawled through the tunnel, broke into the sewer pipe, and escaped. A feat no prisoner had ever accomplished before. This sewer pipe was as long as 2 football fields. The next morning, Andy went to the bank where the warden's black money was stored under the name of a non-existent person. Andy had been signing all documents under this alias from prison. At the bank, he withdrew all the money, amounting to approximately $2.95 million. Andy then sent all the incriminating documents to the press. The following morning, the story was all over the newspapers. When the warden opens his safe, instead of the documents, he finds a Bible. On the first page, Andy had written, "Salvation lies within." As the warden flips through the pages, he finds a cutout in the shape of the rock hammer. Andy had hidden the hammer in the Bible. This was the same Bible the warden had taken from Andy's hands during the first inspection and later returned to him. The warden's entire corruption is exposed. The police arrive to arrest him, but before they can, he takes his own life. Some time later, Red's parole is granted. Red finds a job but struggles to adjust to life outside, having spent 40 years in prison. Living in the same room as the old librarian Brooks once did, Red contemplates ending his life. But then, he recalls the promise he made to Andy. Red visits the large field Andy mentioned, where a big tree and a stone wall stand. Beneath a black stone, he finds a box containing money and a letter from Andy. The letter reads, "Do you remember the place I told you about in prison?" Red responds, "Zewataneo." Andy continues, "I'll be waiting for you there. Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies." Red makes his way to Zewataneo, and when he arrives at the beach, he sees Andy repairing his boat. It is the very place Andy had dreamed of and described to Red in prison. Red once said, "Hope is not a good thing. It can drive a man insane, but perhaps hope is the best thing in the world," which drove Andy to dig a tunnel for 20 years and ultimately achieve everything he dreamed of. This movie was released in 1994 with a budget of $25 million, and it grossed $59 million at the box office. I hope you enjoyed the story.